Isagi goes for a 3-stage evolution to become one of the scariest players in Blue Lock. Now, I've been through these 3 stages myself to become unrecognizable from a few years ago, and you guys will be able to do the same by the end of this video. Covering all of Season 1, this is the story of the main character of one of the greatest animes of all time, Isagi Yoichi, the heart of Blue Lock. You've probably forgotten by now, but Isagi started off at the very bottom. Shortly after arriving at Blue Lock, we find out that of the 300 players gathered there, he's ranked 299, and just take a moment to really imagine how awful that felt. To be in a room with 300 people and be told you're the second worst there. This feeling doesn't really go away over the next few episodes either, as he sees everyone else showing off their specialties whilst he just kind of there, not really capable of doing anything that stands out, and that is exactly what makes the scene that follows so good. The clock counting down and Isagi's whole career about to slip away from him. His fear and desperation very quickly grows. But when the golden opportunity he'd been waiting for falls in front of him, he has the realization that defines his character from this point onwards. If I don't beat someone stronger than me, nothing will change. And this is the first stage of his growth. I've mentioned this in other videos, but for the same reason you always leave your homework for the day before it's due, when you set low goals, you only end up reaching that low goal, even if you're capable of more. For instance, if you only aim to run 3 kilometers, even if you're capable of running 7, you'll only end up running 3 rather than 7 because you have that low goal. Likewise, if Isagi's aim had only just been to be the best player on his Sunday League team, he wouldn't have gone any further than that, even though he's capable of becoming a national level player. But there's even more to it than that. In fact, the more important side of this is Isagi realizing that if he wants to change, he can't stick to his old ways. As he says, at this rate, I'll be the same as I was before. It sounds so obvious that if you want to change something, you have to change something. But we do it all the time. We fantasize about getting in better shape, but don't go to the gym or eat better. We wish we got more sleep, but don't go to bed any earlier. Isagi turning his back on the golden opportunity of an injured player before him is him fully accepting challenge is necessary for change. If he keeps taking the easy route, he's not going to improve, and he's not going to survive Blue Lock. This realization is the first stage of his evolution, resulting in a scene that skyrocketed my expectations for the show, as Isagi, rather than stepping aside and safely clearing the round, chooses to swing a volley at who he might consider his very first rival. And as the ball connects, Isagi moves through to the next stage, but more importantly, proves to himself that he's not as weak as he thought. However, before we move on to Blue Lock's first selection, where Isagi really demonstrates this and begins his second stage, I just want to briefly touch on his other realization, that he can't keep being this goody two-shoes if he wants to get anywhere, because there's a huge number of people out there who simply won't ever put themselves before anyone else. And Isagi seems like this would have been him before coming to Blue Lock. Whilst being selfless is of course a great thing, there's times to put yourself first as well. Be as kind to yourself as you are to everyone else. Anyway, despite his earlier moment of courage, Isagi leaves this match still feeling doubtful of himself. And I like that they showed this, because if you're actually serious about making a change, then this is something you have to accept. We all have this impression that we can just flick a mental switch and suddenly our whole self-image can change overnight, or whatever we want to change about ourselves will just happen. But in my experience, whilst this can work for a bit, it's a very short-term fix. It won't take too long for you to go back to feeling or being the way you were. Our brains are just too clever for their own good sometimes, and will quickly realize that not a lot has changed simply because you think it has. The only way to truly change something, in particular something like confidence, is through consistent, long-term action, resulting in real progress. And this reality hits Isagi hard during the match against Team X. This is the most one-sided game in the whole series. Barrow single-handedly decimates Team Z, as we see the size of the gap between Isagi and the top. He leaves the match filled with that awful feeling of uselessness, and in the following days, he's continuing to doubt himself, claiming he doesn't have anything he's good at. As we soon find out, this couldn't be more wrong. We often just don't notice these sort of things about ourselves. Even with the things we get told we're good at, we seem to have such difficulty accepting it because we fixate on those better than us, no matter how good we are. And this happens with everything, the gym, money, any of your hobbies. We say to ourselves, well, I'm clearly not good because that person over there is better than me. Meanwhile, 99.9% of the population are way behind you. Like, you're doing way better than you think, trust me. And it's the match against Team Y, where Isagi realizes this, and we get our first glimpse of his second stage. In comparison to the last match, this one is actually very close. Nico gets his team the lead with some brilliant passes, but Isagi, realizing his strength lies in the ability to read the field and detect the goal ahead of time, shuts down Nico and sets up Team Z for an equalizer. And so, with a minute on the clock, the score is tied up at 1-1. Team Y completely break through Team Z's defense, as Nico is faced with the same situation Isagi had in episode 1. And he also makes the exact same decision, except this time, Isagi intercepts it before launching a brilliant counter and stunning everyone on the pitch as he shows up at the exact right place at the exact right time to score his first Blue Lock goal and Team Z 3 vital points. And right before the counterattack begins, Isagi says the line, "I don't need that version of myself anymore." And this really stuck with me. It just puts you in the right mindset when you're trying to make progress or change something. It's as though you can see that past version of yourself as a different person, and it makes it so much easier to visualize how those bad habits can affect you. Anyway, as Team Z celebrate their first win, the only other thing I want you guys to know is what Isagi says to Nico. "You and I have the same eyes." I'm going to come back to the point for Isagi's second stage. Team Z's next match is against Team W, which finishes 4-4 to give Team Z a draw. There's not too much to talk about in this match for this video. That was more Chigury's time to shine in one of the most hyped scenes I've ever seen. But the match against the unbeaten Team B is definitely Isagi's show. This game was never going to be easy because not only are Team Z down a player, they also need a win to survive Blue Lock's first election. Things initially seem hopeless as they go 3-0 down. But after some intense battling and multiple awakenings from Team Z, they bring the score back to 3-3. Here, Nagi goes for the same growth Isagi has. He too is now aiming higher and immediately starts performing better as a result because he's no longer putting a subconscious cap on his own ability. Following Nagi's ridiculous goal, Kunigami's equalizer, and Kuon's redeeming sacrifice, the score ties up at 4-4 with just minutes remaining. But a draw isn't enough. Isagi needs a goal, and just as he thinks he's about to get it, Nagi shows up behind him to stop him and directly challenges Isagi, telling him, "You can't beat me." And this following scene encompasses everything I've said up until now. If Nagi wasn't behind him, Isagi would have done his usual routine, controlled the ball, then tried to shoot. It was the challenge of having to score with Nagi right behind him that causes Isagi to push himself and realize what he actually can do, as he risks it all on a direct shot, which landed beautifully in the goal, as Team Z against all odds pull off an insane comeback against the giants of Team V, who suffered their first loss and are filled with frustration despite clearing the first selection alongside Team Z, concluding one of my favourite arcs in all of anime. The second selection begins with 3v3 matches as Isagi and Batra team up. Nagi joins them as their third player in a very interesting scene which I want to save talking about for my Nagi video. Having all seen the benefits to themselves of aiming high, they walk straight up to the top three and immediately challenge them. This doesn't end well. Isagi's faced strong opponents before, but this time it feels different. Rin is on another level entirely, and he has this air of invincibility about him. Although Isagi's team scores a couple goals, the outcome was never really in doubt, as Rin defeats him without even trying. We don't even know what his specialty is by the end of this game. He just seems way too good at everything. Batra has chosen to join the winners, and Isagi is once again one defeat away from being kicked out of Blue Lock. It's a real 180 from his victory over Team B, and no doubt something we can all relate to, where things are finally going well only to turn around and be worse than ever. But as Isagi tells Nagi, sitting around isn't going to change that. They have to take action on it. Just as he says that, another player which seemed completely out of reach to Isagi, Barrow, walks through the door, and it's decided that him and Naruhaya will be their next opponents. This is where Isagi goes for a serious crisis, as his confidence gets completely shattered, but also where he begins his second, most important stage. In the following 2v2, there's a very clear dynamic from the get-go. Two teams of one genius and one average Joe. It's clear exactly what category Isagi falls into, as Nagi completely outshines him. Filled with desperation, Isagi repeats his earlier phrase, "In order to change, I have to discard how I was so far." The score ends up at 4-4, and the tension is higher than ever, as his next goal wins with Isagi still struggling to make him up. But it's here, with his back against the wall, that he has his most important revelation of them all. Remember what I said earlier about how Isagi realized Nika was doing the same thing as him? Isagi realizes he's not special, except unlike you and me, he takes this in exactly the right way. For our whole lives we've been told we're oh so special. You know, every other film has revolved around the chosen one, and we're told over and over again by teachers, music, shows that we're in some way, shape or form special. Now this is true to an extent, but it's taken the complete wrong way. Rather than us seeing as, oh I can do this and no one else can, quite often we see it as, I can't do this, but everyone else can. But truthfully, most things most other people can do, you can do too. You're not that special. And this is a brilliant thing, because every time you say, oh I can't do that, I'm too this or I'm too that, you're completely wrong. Not only is there someone else in the same situation as you doing that, but there's someone in a worse situation than you who's at the level you want to be at. And this realization that we're not actually that special is Isagi's second most important stage. Going back to the match with Barrow, he's looking at the other players for inspiration because he realizes there's no reason he can't do anything. They can. Now, of course, with a minute or two left in the match, he can't just suddenly become as physically strong as Barrow or as brilliant in his first touch as Nagi. Those things would require a lot of training, so by process of elimination, he instead looks to Naruhaya, recognizing that his trick to sneak behind people is something he could quickly learn to do. And this realization is, without a doubt, the biggest factor behind his insane growth, because, as Naruhaya puts it, Isagi is a genius of adaptability. With his new trick, he finally beats Barrow 1v1, something he previously thought impossible, to secure his place in the next one. And we immediately see the impact in the following game. As Isagi constantly learns from everyone else around him, he goes from being possibly the weakest player of the four in the previous match to the MVP of this one. He is an absolute monster in this 3v3. He plays so well that Barrow, who Isagi once feared and saw as completely out of his reach, ends up having an internal crisis as a result of Isagi just completely outclassing him. Isagi is no longer just trying to survive Blue Lock, he's a clear contender for it, all because he realized, I'm not special, and the extension of that is Isagi's third stage. After winning this match and adding Chigiri to the lineup, it's finally time for the long-awaited rematch with Rin. And with all Isagi's team has learned, things are very different this time around. Whilst there's no doubting he's the best player on the pitch, Rin no longer seems this invincible, untouchable god. They can actually fight back against him this time around. They start to get some small wins. Nagi pulls off a beautiful bit of skill to get past him to score. Barrow's new villainous playstyle breaks his control over the game to get another. And most importantly, even though they couldn't stop Rin's solo attack, Isagi realized that this time, he understood everything Rin was doing. Rin, who Isagi saw as unbeatable, could be beaten. The score goes to 4-3, and one more goal will mean Isagi, once again, losing to Rin. But of course, you know what happens next. Using his second stage, Isagi realizes Rin is every bit as human as him. And so, if anything Rin can do, Isagi can do, chances are anything Isagi is doing, Rin is also doing. With this in mind, he uses Rin's own thought process against him, and to Rin's utter dismay, Isagi gets his first major victory over him. Now, of course, we know how this match ends, but despite the result, Rin openly admits that Isagi had him beat in that last play. And so, Stage 3 is more one that he's entering at the end of Season 1, rather than one that he's completed as such. And that's, give yourself some damn credit. You're probably not only doing much better than you think, but are also fully capable of going as far as you're hoping and more. Let's look at how far Isagi's come. He's come from being the second worst player to beating progressively stronger and stronger opponents, each of which seemed way out of reach for him at first, to now being one of the best players at Blue Lock. So, whilst he might not quite be on Rin's level just yet, he used to think Barrow was completely out of reach for him, so if he caught him up, why can't he do the same with Rin? And this happens to a lot of people. We completely lose sight of just how much progress we've made, and as a result, doubt our ability to keep making progress. So if you're ever doubtful that you can reach a certain level, just take a moment to look back, because chances are you used to think the same about where you are now, yet you made it to where you are. So what's stopping you from doing that again? And the season actually ends on this exact note, as Ego tells them that spot on the national team, which once would have seemed miles off, is now fully within reach. But until Season 2 comes out, this is where Isagi's story stays. If you enjoyed this video, check out my barrel video. Cheers for watching, and I'll see you for the next one.